Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Gabriel Asumin, internal medicine physician, working as a hospitalist. So I'm one of the few ones who do the long stretches of 7 days on, 7 days off, or sometimes 2 weeks or 3 weeks on and take some time to travel or spend time with family. We have the honor and privilege of hearing from every specialty is important. Don't get me wrong. As an internal medicine physician, I believe every specialty is important. But to me personally, it is an honor, and I have a lot of respect for OBGYNs.
Yay.
Someday, sometime, somehow, I'll get the opportunity to tell my story. But today we have the privilege and the honor to hear the story of an OBGYN, those who, without whom the world will be the most miserable place because of the high mortality and morbidity surrounding our introduction to the planet Earth.
I'm a little biased. So I'll accept all of that.
I will be very brief in my introduction of our guest today, and I will give her the opportunity to tell us a little bit of her story, because for those who know the Akan language, there is a saying that nobody is able to tell another person's story better than the person themselves. But today, briefly, we have the honor of interacting, hearing the story and the journey of Dr. Cecilia Banga. She is a doctor of osteopathic medicine and a fellow of the American College of Osteopathic OBGYNs. Not only that, she plays a very pivotal role in the American College of Osteopathic OBGYNs. She is and has been a member of the, actually the chair for medical education for the ACOOG, and also a member of the strategic planning committee and a DI officer also. She's been involved in many things in terms of her physician career, but she started all of this, she tells me, from Ghana, where she was born, attended her basic education, went to high school, as we call it now, but back then, middle school, Form 4, college, 5th form, O-levels, A-levels. She attended St. Rose's College and Achimota College. She traveled to the United States to continue her education as an international student, did her bachelor's degree in Oklahoma, and as an international student, got through the challenges of being an international student. And I was an international student myself, so I understand the challenges of being an international student, but also transitioned and started her medical school journey in between the process of an international student and becoming a permanent resident. From then, she did her residency, and today she has been serving as an attendant for many, many years. Currently, she practices as a private partner at Greensboro OBGYN Associates. Dr. Banga, you are welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I know that I tried to rush through it, but please spend about 5 minutes to 10 minutes just telling us about your journey into becoming an OBGYN.
Certainly. It's probably one of my favorite topics to talk about. So as you stated rightfully, I did start my, my primary and high school education in Ghana. I was a campus girl. My parents were both worked for University of Ghana. So I lived in Legon campus. I went to University Primary School. I then went to St. Rose's. I was in the last batch of the O-level system. So I went to St. Rose's from Form 1 to Form 5. And then because I wanted to pursue the sciences, and there was no sciences at St. Rose's, I went on to Achimota Secondary School. as a lot of Legon people tend to do. At the time that I finished my A-levels, there was a strike in Legon. And so I took advantage of that, I guess, to look for other opportunities to do my university studies, and that landed me in Oklahoma. I did transfer schools eventually. So I graduated from University of Oklahoma with a degree in zoology and biomedical sciences. And my final year of college was probably the most impactful in terms of my medical journey, because part of the reason why I transferred from Oklahoma State to University of Oklahoma was because in those days, I moved here in 97, and in those days, there were no cell phones, or at least I didn't have one. Folks might have had some, but as an international student, that was a luxury I didn't quite have. And there was, the opportunity to have your own laptop and whatnot was a little too much beyond me. So doing research on your own to find out different medical schools and colleges and whatnot was, it was quite limited. And so you relied on your college advisors to help you with that. And we had a webinar before, and I think I shared that this was the first time I had heard a lot of people tell me I could not be what I dreamed of being, a physician, simply because I was an international medical student, not because I didn't have the grades, which I did, not because I didn't have the passion, not because I didn't have the work ethic. Those were all the limitations that you faced when you were going through schooling in Ghana. But regardless of all of that, I was told simply because I was an international student, I should give up on that dream. I should consider being a physician's assistant or not. However, in my final year of university and college, I was approached by a fellow student who told me about an organization that had just been started on campus called the Student National Medical Association. And they were on their way to their first conference, and somebody that was supposed to be going with them had dropped out. And they needed one more person to join the team so they could have 4 people to a room and be able to pay. And so I joined, and that was pivotal for me because for the first time, I went to a place where there were many other college students who were interested in going into medical school, all who looked like me. And I heard from lots of people telling me I absolutely could do this. I got to meet with a lot of medical school recruiters, one in particular from Oklahoma State University, who took the time to stand with me, go through my transcripts and tell me I could do this, and I really just needed to write the MCATs. I'm forever in her debt. The other thing that happened at this time was I had one of my biology teachers who had asked everybody in the class what we were going to do on graduation, and everybody answered, and most of the people in the class were going on to medical school. And my answer was, I want to go to medical school, but I'm an international student, so I don't know if I can. And she was a Russian first generation immigrant, and she pulled me after class and gave me a piece of advice that ended up being pivotal as well. She asked me where I was in the application process because I told her I had applied to become a permanent resident. And I hadn't heard back from the embassy, and she told me to send a certified letter. And with the certified letter, there was somebody who was required to sign for it. And this way I would have a name of a person to refer to whenever I called back to the embassy. And it didn't just happen overnight, but using that piece of advice, I was able to find a name of a person. I was able to follow the process through, and I did eventually become a permanent resident, and now a resident. Now I'm a citizen, but that was one of the first steps. But all of these happened in my final year of college. Prior to that, I had strongly considered going back to Ghana. Anyway, fast forward through medical school, I did end up going to the same medical school that the recruiter at that conference told me about. They were one of the people that accepted me after I did my MCATs and passed. And then I went on to residency in New Jersey, at UMDNJ, which is now called Rowan, SOM, is the osteopathic branch. After residency, in the osteopathic world, you have two options to doing your OBGYN residency. You can do a 5-year residency program. So initially you do a 1-year combined, where you do a general medicine rotation. And then your 4 years of OBGYN, but I did a fast track because I went in knowing that I wanted to become an OBGYN. And so I did a fast-tracked 4-year residency program. And upon graduating, I joined a hospital-employed group out of a little rural town in Ohio. So I can relate to being in a small town. And then after 5 years there, my husband and I and our young budding family transitioned to North Carolina, where I joined a private practice. And this is where I am now.
What an interesting story. Now, you did mention about the SNMA.
Yes.
And how I don't believe in accidents, okay? I believe that everything in life happens for a reason, for a purpose. And so how by divine manifestations, somebody said, I'm not going to this conference now. And God says, you need to meet this person who invites you to the SNMA. How do you perceive that things would have played out if you had not been to that conference?
I have absolutely no idea, but I am quite convinced that I would not be sitting here as the physician that I am today. That conference was so eye-opening. You know, one of the things that I took for granted growing up in Ghana was everybody around me looked like me. And so I never had to wonder if I could do something solely because I was, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, I was Black or Ghanaian or anything like that. But being in Oklahoma, majority of my classes, I did end up being the only person of color and specifically being Black. And so subconsciously, I didn't realize how much that had impacted me in terms of making me think that maybe this was not an achievable goal. I do remember a very pivotal conversation with my father after one of my sessions with my mentor, where he said, well, if it seems like you're not going to be able to become a doctor there and that's what you've always wanted to be, maybe it's time to come back home. And the only thing that made me hesitate a little bit was I knew that with the medical system back in Ghana, it would be hard for me to just transition into medical school in Ghana. I would have to start from scratch. And most of my mates were already 2-3 years ahead. And I wasn't ready for that adjustment quite yet. I didn't know how to not do that, but I really don't know what else I would have done if I had not had that meeting, if I had not gone to that first SNMA meeting. I ended up going to a second one as well. And interestingly, that first one I went to, I believe it was Ben Carson was the speaker. And the theme of his talk was Think Big. And I did get to meet him at the time and had him sign my ID card. And I hung that in my car for the following, for almost an entire year. And that encouraged me a lot. So I don't know that I would be the physician I am right now if I hadn't gone to that conference.
So would it be fair or a right summary to say that some of these interactions that or platforms that we create for us to mingle and interact with people of similar kind, similar background do make a difference?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every single interaction that I have had that has gotten me where I am is mostly because of interactions at conferences, events, things like that. I mentioned the SNMA. I mentioned that the medical school recruiter that I met was at the recruitment fair at the SNMA conference. And, I think one of the things that I want people to take away from this series with me today is make sure that you are really open to opportunities when they come around. Make sure that you pursue all avenues. Don't think that something could, don't negate something before you've given it a chance. When I first talked to, and her name is Dana Livingston, I drop her name every time I get a chance because she was fantastic. She's retired now. But I remember walking by her booth and, she encouraged me to come by to talk. And she was a petite little woman. And she asked me, so are you applying to medical school as well? And I told her, I said, well, I would love to if I can find somewhere that can take me as an international student. And she said, well, tell me more about that. And I went ahead and I told her, what my journey had been. And she said, do you have good grades? I said, absolutely, I do. And she just took some time to really talk to me about it. She said, what about the MCATs? I said, I hadn't taken them yet. I didn't feel the need to spend that money to write the MCATs if I wasn't going to get into medical school. And she said, I really think you should. However, since you're in your final year, my advice to you is make sure you're going to be out of college a year before you take it, because you have to take it next year. Make sure that you make a good grade on it. So if you need to take a prep course, whatever you have to do to make sure that you're fully ready for it, do that. And I did that. I did the Princeton Review prep course because at the time, this was before 9/11. I think once you graduated, if you were still an international student, you had a 1-year work excuse or something like that.
Optional practical training.
Optional practical training, exactly. And so you could do that and not be, enrolled fully in college and still be legal. And so during that time, while I was working, I did the Princeton Review, and then I took the MCATs. And like I said, Oklahoma State was one of the places that accepted me.
Wow. Like I said, I do believe that miracles do happen, and this certainly falls into that category for me. One of our attendees, one of our guests says, very inspiring story. Can Doc tell us how she balances work with family?
Oh boy.
I know we are making a very big leap over all the exciting times of medical school residency to family, but that's what's important to Michael or Mike OD. So
okay. So, I can't say that I have perfected it. I certainly am always working to find a better work-life balance. At any point in time, one of my children might bust in here. So if you see me looking off to the side, that might be why. I'm married. My husband is a physician as well. And we have 2 young children, 11 years old and 8 years old. And so I sit on the board of their school. I stated I'm in private practice. One of the reasons why I transitioned into private practice was I wanted to make sure that I would have a little bit of flexibility over my schedule so that I would be able to be present at their school plays, at their school events. If they were to get sick and I needed to bring them into my office, that I would have some leeway over whether that was possible or not. And so I think it's about being intentional. I have a calendar where I plan out my whole year. From the beginning, I map in all the important dates for their school events. I map out all the important dates for the different committees and organizations that I participate in. There are times when I'm not able to do some of the things. I was just telling Dr. Asuming that unfortunately this year, I won't be able to make it to the GPSF conference because I had a conflicting conference, but I'm absolutely going to be there next year. And so work-life balance is always going to be a work in progress. But I think that you can definitely make some strategic career and lifestyle plans that can allow for that.
Since we're talking about how you balance your career and family, you mentioned one thing which is very important, being intentional, planning ahead, setting your priorities and making sure that you put yourself in situations or environments where you are able to achieve or focus on that which is most important to you. Now, let me ask this question, because a lot of the times people don't pay attention to it, right? When you finish residency, you have student loan debts. Your colleagues have been working, who went to straight from college to a career, have been working and accumulating wealth in their 401k. Their bank accounts are healthy. They are driving fancy cars, and you are tempted to go after the money. What role does your support system play in making all these decisions for your family?
Very good question. And I think there's multi-parts to it. So I'll attempt to answer the whole question. First of all, one of the areas that I also do need to touch on is in being intentional, your planning has to start from the beginning. And by that, I mean, sometimes during residency, you don't have a lot of control over, how much you're earning and whatnot. There are some people who go into some residency programs where they're allowed to do locums, and they're allowed to, what is it called when they work on the side? They're allowed to take call at different hospitals, even as a resident. I knew some residents that were able to do that. I, as an OBGYN resident, absolutely did not have that opportunity. However, once you come out of training, I've heard this said on some of the other career series, and I can't reiterate it enough. It is important to not live like an attending because you are an attending just the first year out. You really are not in a financial position to do so if you come out with loans, as most of us do end up coming out of. I will credit my husband with one of the most pivotal financial decisions that I made, and it was if we were going to move to this rural town, because they had a great hospital system and they had an opportunity for me to have loan repayment, that while we were there, we would have a plan that by the time we were leaving, my loans would be paid off. And I did that. So within the first 5 years of being in Sydney, Ohio, I had my loans paid off. Now, my husband had a different plan for himself. His plan was to make sure when he was leaving there, he had his physician's MBA. So we were very intentional with how we planned out the time that we were spending. So even though we were in this small town where we didn't have a lot of support system, we made sure that we made decisions that would allow us later on. So for example, for us, when we moved to North Carolina, it was a decision that we made solely based on social support system. And we were able to do that because we had the financial flexibility to do so based on decisions that we had made earlier on. I drove the same car that I had in medical school. Actually, I had that car in college, and then I had it through medical school. I drove that car from Oklahoma all the way to New Jersey. I had that car for quite a long time. And I think it was after the birth of my first daughter that I finally caved and bought a new car because it probably wasn't reliable enough. But just not kowtowing to the idea that a doctor has to drive this fancy car, has to do this, has to do that. That stuff will come later. It's important to make sure that you position yourself well and get yourself in a position where you can have a good support system. I'm not sure if I answered all of the factors of your question. If I missed anything, let me know.
No, this touches on almost every aspect, and even those that I did not touch upon, right? Yes, the finances are important, but you have to make sacrifices to get to where you want to get to.
Exactly.
And I had an attendant a professor who used to say, if you don't know where you are going, then you take any road.
Yeah, that's very true.
But if you know where you are going, then you pick the route that will get you to that destination.
Exactly.
So,
there was another factor that I used as well in my financial planning was the Dave Ramsey method. And this was something that was introduced to me by when we were in Ohio. There was a credit union that I used for my banking, and I met with the financial planner there. And again, I have had the luck of having some amazing people come into my life, by no means of my own, but he recommended that I use the Dave Ramsey method of paying off debt. And so I followed that pretty strategically, and I told him what my plan was for the 5 years, and he helped me with that. So that's something I would encourage people to look into as well.
Great. Now, one of our attendees has a question, and it's an anonymous attendee. The question is, I'm currently a junior doctor in Ghana with a dream of practicing in the States. Is there any advice for me, please?
So I have some strengths and I have some weaknesses. And one of my weaknesses is going to be in advising on transitioning from practicing in Ghana to the States. That being said, I do have some very close contacts who have done that transition. And so even though I may not be able to counsel you point by point on how to do that, I can certainly get you in touch with some people who have done that successfully and can give some guidance there. I do know that the USMLE plays a very important role. And I do know folks who have had to make that transition and also go through residency again here. So practicing in Ghana and coming here straight into practice, I don't know many people that have been able to do that. I do know of folks who have been able to do the USMLE and get into residency programs here and be able to practice successfully that route. But again, I can certainly get you in touch with some people who can help with that.
Right. And GPSF has actually a group that helps with some of those conversations, right?
Yes.
Now, let me say that we as an organization are here to support our colleagues here and in Ghana. Unfortunately, we can't facilitate the process for you to move from Ghana to come to the United States. If there are questions about how to write the USMLE, study habits, study resources, how to do well on the exam, we are very good at helping you with that. Now, once you get into the United States, we also have all the expertise and resources and personnel that can help you with residency application, going over your personal statements, helping you with mock interviews, and help you get into residency. But unfortunately, we don't have the resource to help with transitioning from Ghana to the United States. Now, I know that Dr. Eno Efuanyanin is on the platform. She is a friend. I've met her multiple times at the GPSF conference. She is my past president. And so I see she has her hand up. I will give her the opportunity to contribute to the conversation or ask a question.
It was completely by accident that my hand went up. But I just wanted to say Dr. Banga is the bomb. She's amazing. Go OBGYNs from Robert Wood Johnson, Hamden, so many commonalities. Can't wait to meet you in person someday.
Yes, I can't wait myself.
Yes, thank you.
And if I can just say, we usually share a lot of stories about residency and how grueling and tough the programs can be. But I will have to say that my residency program was grueling. It was tough. It really prepared me for practice as an attending. However, it was probably one of the most fun times for me as well. Doing residency in New Jersey after having been in Oklahoma, I had so many friends from high school, family members. I had a really good support system there. I had, so if you're ever thinking of how you can support some of your family members when they're in residency, a good cooked meal for them when they're leaving, a week of night call, it goes a long way. They remember that for years to come. So.
I remember that when I was a medical student, we would go to church, and when there was potluck, you go quickly and get your meal, and then after everybody has eaten, you see if there is anything that you can pack to go, you know. But we were fortunate and had a mother in the church who everybody, even today when we talk, brings up her name and say, Enumere there, because she packed food and bring it to you. And, you know, we really, really did appreciate. And I can't say what I plan to do, but when I heard that she was celebrating a birthday recently, I was like, why am I broke now? I'm gonna wait till the time comes when I can surprise her. So yes, it's important showing support to people when they are in training, whether you are an attendant, whether you are even a medical student. Any support that you can give to somebody who is in training is important. Now, Dr. Banga, I'm going to ask you a very, very challenging question. I don't know if you can answer this question, but I have to.
I'll do my best.
You said that you're an open book, so please don't count this against me.
Okay.
What was the most challenging experience you had in your training?
In my training or in my experience during my training?
Well, whether it was even as a part of your residency program, whether it was in your personal life, whether it was at church, whether it was your spiritual life, whether it was your social, whatever challenge that you feel like, wow, this was impactful, this was monumental, and how did you overcome that?
Well, okay. I know what I'm going to talk about. Now, this was not necessarily in my training, but it did have an impact on my career. And it was a personal event that happened I'm trying to think, it was in my 3rd year as an attending. I lost both of my parents. I had my first daughter, and I was pregnant with my second. I was in my 3rd trimester when I lost my father, somewhat unexpectedly. We knew he was ill, but we didn't expect him to pass away. And then shortly after his funeral, 3 days later, I lost my mother. Now, when I lost my father, I was studying for my oral board exams. And so I lost him in April, and my exam was in April. And I immediately applied for an extension, and I was granted it, but I had been studying for a while, and I thought, no, let me go ahead and still take this oral exam. In retrospect, I should have just taken the extension because I was in no way, shape, or form mentally ready for that exam at that time. So I did take my oral board exam that April of 2014, and I failed by 1 percentage point. It still goads me to this day. I immediately, registered again to retake it. At the time with the osteopathic boards, oral boards, they offered them twice a year. They offered them in April and again in October. So I did that, but that was a very pivotal time for me as well. I use the word pivotal a lot, but losing your parents when you are not near them makes the loss seem even greater. I was not able to go to my mother's funeral because I was too far along. I went to my father's, I was 34 weeks. But when I came back from Ghana and a day later, I'd lost my mother. That loneliness, and that made me actually really realize how much of a lack of support system we had in a rural Ohio where we were. It had served its purpose at that point. It had gotten me to a point where I'd been able to pay off my loans and had the financial flexibility to make a change. And so when I suggested to my husband that I think it's time for us to move somewhere else, so we have a better support system, because bless his heart, he had to break the news to me both times, and I felt like a lot fell on him. So we were able to pick a place that we wanted to move to, and I could design the kind of life that I wanted. So that question that was asked earlier about work-life balance, I was very intentional about that. I absolutely knew that I needed to be at a place where I had opportunities for my daughters, where I could have experiences with them and have friends around that could be of support to us if we needed that. So that was probably the most challenging time. I'm not saying that there weren't other challenging times during medical school and residency. There absolutely were, but by far this was the most challenging time that affected both my career and my personal life.
And thank you very much for sharing that deep and personal story. There's no loss that is easy, but like you said, some get to you on a different level. And so thank you for sharing. There is a question from Dr. Eno Efuajan, and she says, I like that you are on the school board. Can you tell us more about participation in the children's school?
Yes, so that is still a bit of a learning process for me. I realized that I wouldn't be able to make it to every single event that they have in their school because they have so many events. But one of the ways that I could make sure that I was staying in the know on what was going on at the school, and I could sort of cherry pick the important events that I absolutely could not miss, was to be active. And so initially I was asked if I wanted to participate on one of the committees on the school, and it was for the community service. And so I did that, and I like having events where there's a lot of fun. I was entertainment prefect both in St. Rose's and Achimota. So when it comes to events like that, I like participating. So I did that initially at the school, just to have community service events where people would come together, bring potlucks, and the parents get to know each other. And from that, I got nominated to be on several other committees. And then eventually I was asked to be on the board. It just gives you a behind the scenes look at what's going on in the decision making in the school and whatnot. And for me, I found that it's a great way for me to be involved in some of the decisions that are made at my children's school. So I feel like I'm impacting them in several forms.
Nice. That's very nice. Giving back to the community and also feeding into your own children's training and upbringing. That's very good. Now let me take us all the way back. All the way back. Tell me about your first week in medical school.
First week in medical school was, I'll tell you about the first night. They had a social event at one of the professors' houses. And I remember one of my classmates asking, and I can't think of the name of the histology book, asking how many of us had finished reading the histology book. I hadn't even bought my books yet. And so it was quite to myself, did I bite off more than I can chew? I mean, and I later realized that a lot of people in the circle were bluffing more than they needed to, because lots of people nodded and I just stared blankly. But later I realized that other people just hadn't bought the books either, like me. So first week was very eye-opening, trying to figure out who you could study with, who had similar habits, who was friendly, who was not. Now, the school that I went to, we had a relatively smaller medical school class. There were 66 of us. And so it wasn't huge. I know, medical programs where there's 200 and whatnot. So over time, everybody got to be relatively close. But you certainly had your core group of people. And we had some excellent professors. For those who went to medical school here in the States, this name might be familiar, Dr. Goulian. Dr. Goulian actually ended up being my pathology professor, and so I had some great faculty and some great mates, but the first week of medical school was definitely overwhelming.
I like the story that you shared about somebody saying, have you finished reading this book?
I hadn't even bought the book.
If anybody who is on this session or anybody that listens to the video later, if I can say anything about this, that would be, please and please don't listen to people when you are embarking on any monumental journey. Don't listen to people. Yes, you have to take advice and you have to take cues and you have to learn. You have to learn from people. But when I say don't listen to people, I mean don't let them get to you.
Absolutely.
Because like Dr. Banga said, there are some who would just be bluffing. And there are a lot who would pretend to be in that situation and leave you to feel like you are the odd one out. Always look within, know who you are, know what and who has brought you to where you are, and focus on where you are going. If you need to ask for help, please ask for help and ask for help quickly. Because no matter how much help you get, if you pass all your exams legitimately, it is going to be only your name on the certificates and the board exam report scores. So please don't let people make you feel inferior.
Absolutely.
You can do it. And if God brings you to it, he will get you through it.
One of the things I like to always say is, it's been done before. People have done it before. That means it's doable. It's just a matter of, do you want to do it? Because if you say you want to do it, you will find a way to do it if you truly want to.
Yeah. What made you enjoy residency? And hold on one second. Let me throw this pin in.
Okay.
I wanted to be an OBGYN, so I did an OB elective.
Okay.
And I know you have to get up very early in the morning.
Yes.
Just like our surgeon friends.
Yes.
Go for your rounds in the hospital, sometimes leave the hospital, go to clinic, and sometimes come back to do deliveries on your patients that you are following in clinic.
Yes.
How did you balance all of that? How did you do it?
I couldn't do it at this age, I'll tell you that. I'm glad I was younger when I was doing that. Not to say that you can't do residencies or change, careers at an earlier age, but for me personally, I think I just had a lot of energy at that time. But I'll be honest, this is not being cliche. I had amazing nursing staff that I worked with. I mean, they were like family, and their tendings were great. My residency program was a smaller one. When we actually started the first year, there were three of us, and then the third person left. I don't think she made it through the first month. And if I'm not mistaken, I think she had been a midwife before, and then she joined our program. And I can't remember why she left, but after the first month, it was just two of us instead of three. And I'll be seeing my other colleague at the conference in April, and I can't wait to see her. You develop these really close bonds with people that you're in the trenches with. But we truly just enjoyed what we were doing. I love being an OBGYN. I don't know what else I could do with as much passion as being an OBGYN. Every new birth, it's miraculous to me. Every little life that you see brought into the world, I feel like the minute that I stop being marveled by that's when I know I need to stop what I'm doing. But I think it was just a genuine passion for what I was doing. I say I wanted to be an OBGYN for selfish reasons, because initially it was because of physical changes my body was going through, and I was curious what the biology behind that was. So for me, it didn't feel like learning. It felt like reading a mystery book, and I love reading. So I just naturally gravitated towards that. And everything in the OBGYN world, I mean, from the GYN aspects to the surgical aspect to delivering babies, it's all still fascinating to me. So maybe that's what it was. I think for me in residency, the knowledge that I was gaining was just making me understand more. And so I didn't feel overwhelmed. And again, I had a great support system as well. So one of my friends kept a toothbrush in her house for me. And so if I was getting off work, she knew I really like Gary Photo. And she'd call and say, we have Gary Photo for you. And I would go over there. You know, I had a great support system. I had excellent people that I was learning from. And one of the opportunities I got during residency was to go to Ghana. In my final year of residency, I got to travel to Ghana with Dr. Akins as part of his medical mission trip. And I had never practiced medicine in Ghana. And it was just a full circle moment for me. We went to KNUST and did a ton of surgeries there. And, you know, I got to watch a few deliveries. So that's probably why I enjoyed residency. I had great teachers, great colleagues, great nursing staff, and a good support system.
I am glad to hear your story. At this point, I will call on our audience. If there's anybody who has a question, anybody in the attendee group, if you have a question, a comment. While we're waiting, if somebody walked up to you and said they want to go to medical school, they are undecided as to what they want to do with their medical training, what advice would you give them?
Well, I don't think you have to know exactly what you want to do before you go to medical school. Sometimes part of the journey is learning what speaks more to you. There are some people that will know exactly what they want to do, and I kind of fell into that category. But even so, I explored other opportunities. We had an opportunity to do rotations in other fields when I was in med school. And I think I tried ER and general surgery, and I want to say GI, I can't remember so, but I came back to OB. But there are a lot of people who go to medical school not knowing exactly which field they want to go into. They know they want to live a life of service. They want to help people feel better health-wise. And so part of that journey is, you know, learning the biology of the body and figuring out which part of it speaks most to you. And sometimes doing a general rotating residency might be the way to go to actually figure out a little better which path is best for you. So you don't absolutely have to know, would be my answer. There's still opportunities to explore that as you go along. And the clinical rotations do a lot of that work for you too.
And I asked that question intentionally because as we go through rotations, you realize that this person says, oh, I want to do this. And then the next time you meet them, they say, oh, I want to do this. And then the next time you meet them, they say, oh, I want to do this. So definitely, if you are 100% sure what you want to do when you're going into your medical training, then stay with that. If you're not sure, that doesn't make you any less qualified to become a physician. Be open-minded, be humble, ask questions. If you are interested in something, approach the attendants and figure out what makes them love what they do, because the life of a student or even the life of a resident is definitely not similar to the life of an attendant.
Very true. Very true.
Any last comments, words of advice, experiences that you would like to share?
I would like to share that I think I've reiterated a couple of things a lot of times. Being intentional in your planning, making sure that you listen to positive advice, and you can listen to the negative advice, but just don't let it stick in your head, because again, people have done this before, and so it can be done. Making sure that you make your decision based on passion as well, because this is not a field that we go into for the financial aspect of it. The hours are grueling. They can be very fulfilling, but they're grueling. And so you have to genuinely like what you're doing to continue doing it in a way that you serve your patients. I want to tell everybody that OBGYN is not, you can have a life as an OBGYN. Yes, we wake up early, we don't sleep much, but you can, I mean, I'm a female, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, and I mean, I do a lot of activities on different committees. I have other pet projects that I do. I'm an author. I'm a designer. I have a lot of other things that I do as well. And so there is space and time to do all the things that you're genuinely interested in. So don't negate OBGYN simply because people say, oh, those hours are grueling. They're grueling, but they're not that bad. And you get to see cute babies. So,
you get to see cute babies. I was waiting to see you bring it all the way back to where we started.
Yes, you get to see cute babies. So there's nothing better than that.
So there's no greater miracle in life than to be a part of the process of introducing a life into this world, right? Now, whatever your religious background is, there's that mystery of how the human or life is formed, right? Inside another being.
Yes.
Even if it's just an egg that is turning into chicken, there's the mystery to it. And then we come to the human species, and we have to go through a special process, a delicate special process to introduce one of the individuals who's going to be a part of us, maybe even sometimes turn around to take care of us, be our lawyer, be our judge, be our attorney, be our teacher, be our neighbor, whatever role they choose to try, do or play in human life, you get to be there to introduce them into the world.
You sound like an OBGYN at heart.
I can say too much more. You become God's hands to bring God's creation into the world. It's really special, and we respect all that you do. God bless you for what you do for society.
Thank you very much. I do want to say it is very humbling, and you do realize that we are all really the same. We come into this world the same, yes. Very helpless, dependent, and it's interesting to see the journeys that we then continue from then on.
Well, it's been an honor and a pleasure listening to you. I hope to see you next year at the GPSF conference in Atlanta.
I'll be there.
Where we were in the same conference room in 2017, but never got to interact with each other. I hope that this time we get to say hello.
Absolutely.
God bless
Thank
your
you
ministry,
so much.
and I wish you all the best. To
Thank
all
you so
those who made the time to be here for tonight's, there's a hand up. Dr. Akins is here.
Oh gosh, Dr. Akins.
Let's give Dr. Akins a few minutes. Since we started late, we can rationalize that we have some 5-7 minutes to go. Dr. Akins.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you can. Hi, Dr. Akins.
Well, hi, Cecilia. I think that was great advice for the young, budding future colleagues. But one thing I would add, some of us who are old folks, is that, we don't really seek mentors when we are going through training. It's a very, very important thing to do, because believe me, there are situations where one gets into a situation where people are ready to have you booted out of training programs. Believe me, it happens.
Yes.
And if you don't have a mentor, somebody who can go in and fight for you, it becomes very challenging. And a lot of times I've known great people who other programs have let go because they had no champions. So once you get into a program, gravitate towards people who have your interest and who will be able to guide you, assist you, and help you. And I think Gabriel said it clearly. You need help, go quickly. Because for us with this pigment in our skin, when you get there, the belief is you don't belong. Mm-hmm. And I have personally faced that. When an attending basically says to another attending, I don't think he's going to get into this fellowship. I don't know how good he is. Mind you, I have saved this guy's butt in the operating room when he couldn't do a freaking simple hysterectomy, vaginal hysterectomy, couldn't do it. I did it. And yet he's telling someone he doesn't think I can get this fellowship. unbeknownst to the person, he doesn't know I graduated AOA. I was in the top 10% of my class. But because I'm humbled and quiet and don't speak or don't carry a big stick, he thought, oh, he's not going to get it. When I got in, then his response was, oh, who helped him? So I'm saying all of this to tell you, there are going to be many people that will try to,
get you down.
Sort of degrade you, make you feel like you don't belong, because they don't really know your background. They don't know where you're coming from. You got to keep your head up, and you got to find people that look for your interests to be able to help you, and reach out. You don't have to just reach out to people in your program. You can reach out to people outside your program to get advice and talk to people. Try to go to conferences, go to meetings. That's what I did. Meet people, who you get to know. They don't have to be, African-American or Ghanaian, so on. All people, Caucasians, Jewish, just people that you come across that you become friends with. All of these people can help you. And I think that is one of the things that you really have to try to do.
Yes.
And make friends.
Yes.
Because, you're going to need them.
And I'd just like to piggyback on that because Dr. Akins was one of my mentors. And I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Akins in my 4th year. And I mean, surgically, he just inspired me. And again, I think I mentioned before, I was able to go to Ghana with his nonprofit group and just exposed me to so many things. And Dr. Akins was not a part of my direct program, but I did my GYN oncology rotation there. And I was this close to becoming a GYN oncologist because of him. So I cannot reiterate that enough. But probably another thing I want to add to that is know your stuff. Know your stuff, because the people that the naysayers are going to be out there. And they will say these things about you, but the only way you can beat them at their game is to know your stuff, so that when the moments come up where you have to stand up and perform that surgery or explain that complications to that patient or develop a treatment plan, you have to know your stuff so that your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, and everybody can actually know that you got there on your own merit. So.
Very, very, very important additions. Yes, you need the mentors. And I'm not going to add my story at this time because time is fast spent. But yes, you need the mentors. And again, know your material. I think yesterday somebody was asking me why I'm not transfusing for hemoglobin of 7.1. And after spending about 3 minutes explaining to the patient's family why I am not going to transfuse, they stood there shaking their head and nodding their head. You got to come prepared. You got to know. And if you don't have the answer, phone a friend.
Yeah.
They don't have to be a part of your facility. They don't have to be a part of your program. And that's where networking
Yes.
comes into play. That's where having mentors comes into play. You're dealing with a very bizarre situation that doesn't fit anything. Take time away, review the literature, go into your textbooks, go to UpToDate, and if you can't find the answer, phone a friend. Because at the end of the day, you are God's hands managing human life. Dr. Eno Efuanyani.
I guess I just, I've lost my voice, so just excuse me a second. But I just wanted to add, I think everybody touched on everything, but I'm an OBGYN as well, practicing in Delaware. And I went to Robert Wood Johnson Medical School, and I did my 3rd and 4th year in Camden. So that's where I met Dr. Akins. And I also went to Ghana with the International Healthcare Volunteers.
Yes.
So in my 3rd year of medical school. And that was really pivotal for me. Like Dr. Banga, I always knew that I wanted to be an OBGYN, but I really loved delivering babies, but I didn't know how I was going to like the surgery aspect. I felt like OBGYNs talked too much about how big the fibroids they took out were. And but going to Ghana with the group, I actually got to do a hernia surgery. Fell in love with surgery. And now I probably love surgery more than delivering babies. And I really love delivering babies, you know? So that was also just a really great experience. Doing global medicine, I think, is amazing. Work with international healthcare volunteers, going back to Ghana. And it also helps you see how you can give back.
Yes.
And it helps you see how lucky you are to be also, you know, to have the resources that you have in the US. So that was a really amazing experience. Dr. Akins has remained a mentor of mine. I called him when I was studying for boards. So just long and short, join GPSF, network, you know, OBGYN is cool.
Yay.
Yeah, it's a small world.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. There is a saying again in the Akan language, because it's the only other language besides English that I speak fluently, that says that agroya deno na adiesa nkrasifo. As the game is getting more interesting, we need to be mindful of time, because there are other things that we need to take care of. We will have more sessions to come. We are open to your suggestions. We are always accepting new members, whether you are a physician, a non-physician, a medical student, a resident, a fellow, whether you are not in health sciences. GPSF is always open to inviting other people into our midst. And together we work to help improve the quality of life for our fellows in Ghana by working with our colleagues with the Ghana Medical and Dental Council, the Ghana College of Physicians and Surgeons, and the Ghana Medical Association. We partner with nursing staff, we partner with pharmacists. Everybody is invited to join GPSF. If there is any way we can improve the quality of our programs, please don't hesitate to send us your suggestions, your comments. Dr. Banga, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today and for sharing with us. May God be with you and bless you and your family in everything that you do. God bless you so much. And
God bless you. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Akins.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
Dr. Akins, thank you very much for all you do.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
We appreciate you.
Bye.
Appreciate you guys too. Take care.
Bye-bye.